This is Chaos Theory
and Cosmic Chisme,
where we put the chaos into theory and spill the tea about the connections between us, nature, and everything in between.
So join us in unraveling the cosmic secrets and coincidences we just couldn't ignore. Ahoy, Cosmic Chismosos! Welcome to Chaos Theory and Cosmic Chisme. I'm Ashley.
Yar! And I'm Kayleen.
Yes! And today, we've got some coffee brewing, and we can't wait to pour you a hot cup with the story of Maroons, who they were, and how they fought off their enemies by just using the deep, lush jungle around them. If you are new to our podcast and don't know what a chismosa is, well, you've come to the right place. Basically, we're just two curious ladies who love to gossip about science, nature, history, and the drama amongst it all.
If you haven't listened to our series already about the islands, go back and check them out. They all connect, and maybe they can help you connect more dots as we keep going.
That's true, and if you have any connections you'd like to share or any topics you want us to cover, just leave a comment.
And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and now YouTube. Yay!
Woo-hoo!
And make sure to tap that notification button so you're always in the loop with what our next chisme is. So we sat down to record this podcast episode. Then I get a text saying, can you come pick us up? My dad, he's stranded. He's got my stepmom and my niece with him. So I'm like, oh gosh, okay. So I was like, all right, Ash, hang tight. I'm going to pop out real quick. It's going to be right down the road and back. It's going to be fine. So I get there. Their car is like in it's like in this tiny little off-road gravel patch. It's just a patch, right? So I'm pulling in. This is where, like, we're out in the country a little bit. So where I'm about to try to pull onto sort of like a more country-ish road. And I'm trying to, like, pull next to them in this little tiny patch. And I'm thinking, okay, cool. I just got to, like, turn in and wiggle myself out. I got my emergency lights flashing, like, trying to get in. Nope. Underneath this tall grass that was surrounding the gravel patch was a ditch. And I had no idea. Next thing I know, half my car is in this ditch. My tire is off the ground.
No!
Yes. And my dad's screaming at me from his car. He's like, I didn't mean for you to park next to me. I was like, how was I supposed to know?
Yeah, and you're like, don't make this worse.
I was coming to save you. And now my car's in the air. And I was like, I just couldn't see. I couldn't see where I was putting my car. So my dad's like, well, I have to keep the gas pedal I have to keep my foot on the gas pedal because his car needs to, like, I don't know what I'm talking about. All I know is what he told me. And because his car gets, whenever it rains a lot, if the undercarriage of the car gets wet, it, like, messes up the computer system or whatever. It's an old car. We're out here. We're struggling.
Okay, gotcha.
I'm sure many Americans can relate to some degree.
Yeah.
We're struggling.
So he had to keep his foot on the gas pedal.
Yes, in his car, right? So he's
like, you're screwed.
Yeah. Meanwhile, my car's too, because the tire's spinning and it's in the air. I'm trying to back up. Nothing is working, of course. How do I back up, right? So then I get out of my car. My dad's yelling at me, and he's like, I can't leave. Like, we have to figure this out. And so my stepmom then gets out of the car, goes over. They do a little switcheroo. Meanwhile, my 14-year-old niece is in the back seat, wide-eyed, staring at me through the window. So my dad's able to get out, and then my dad jumps right into action. He's like, we've got to prop something underneath, like, this car, like, underneath the tire, right?
Okay.
I was like, okay, cool. And
we got a plan.
I was literally looking at him being like, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? Yeah. And so my dad just starts climbing up a hill, grabbing logs, throwing them down. He also propped up the car using a tire jack, like a car jack, I mean.
Gotcha.
And so he's got it kind of like propped up, so at least we have a little bit more room to like put stuff wedge under the tire, right?
Yeah.
And take notes, folks, because this is how you get out of a sticky situation.
There you go.
So we had all these logs and everything, and we're working together. I'm wearing flip-flops, basically. I'm wearing slides. So, like, I'm climbing up a hill, too, getting, like, vines, like, thorny vines are wrapping around my legs and stuff. And I'm just, like, trying to get to him, trying to, like, get more sticks and stuff. Long story short, we're able to, like, wedge all these, like, logs and everything like that under the tire. And I'll show you the one picture I was able to take. We can post this on the show notes.
Oh, my gosh.
Yes.
What a mess.
I know. I wish I had a picture of my tire in the air, because that was crazy. That was sobering. I just paid off my car.
Yeah.
So that was sobering to be like, oh my God, I'm about to like lose my car. So we were able to prop it all under, all the logs and everything, tree branches and stuff like that underneath the tire. Then we're like, let's get somebody to sit in the back of the car to weigh it down, so that way the tire will come down. So my niece hops in the back seat, and then, I put it in reverse. Put it in reverse, Terry! And I pull out and everything, and it all worked out. Thank God, thank my dad. But yeah, so then he's like, well, I'm going to go ahead and try my car now. Of course, he's able to get his car out. And I was like, so all this drama.
So you didn't even need to be there.
I didn't even really need there. I was just like, I'm bringing the drama. I was like, come save me instead. And so I think it goes to show that, like, you don't really know how bad you have it until somebody comes along and has it worse. Yeah. and then you realize how good you have it.
Yeah.
So my dad was able to get out. My niece is in the back seat, and we were driving home, and then I was like, let me just put on some music, right? My car shuffles my songs. God is a Woman by Ariana Grande pops up, and we're just singing it, and we're like, I love this song. And I was like, some nerve of us to be driving around singing God is a Woman after a man just saved us from everything. And I was like, all right, but but hey, we carry on.
Right. I mean, and you all managed. Shoot.
Yes.
And laughed at it in the end.
Yeah. Okay, so now that I've already talked about my crazy day, Ashley, what do you have in store for us today?
So I want to go back, because the last few episodes we talked about, like, the colonists and the Spaniards and enslaved people, tribes, natives, all that stuff. So I'm just going to talk a little bit more about that before we talk about the jungle, because I want to talk about the jungle.
The jungle.
Yep, jungle people. So I wanted to talk about them because... So during the, the discovery of the New World and everything, a lot was going on. Mm-hmm. And so there's this group of people, and they're called Maroons. Mm-hmm. And they are enslaved people who have escaped plantations to start or become, like, a new tribe.
Now, is this the same thing as, like in Pirates of the Caribbean? Because this is all I
probably
think about.
is.
Okay.
Yeah.
When he goes, I left you on the island, Jack, with one revolver and with one bullet, stranded, marooned out here. Like, is that...
That's what they're talking about.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And the pirates were also a big part of the Maroon tribes. And so I'm going to focus on Jamaica because since the Maroons were, a lot of them were there. But it's really important to note that they were also everywhere else. So, like, Brazil, Ecuador, Mexico, and southern United States.
Okay.
So they So again, these are people who escaped from the colonists, and so they mixed in even with like Native American tribes.
Of course, yeah.
So Maroons were everywhere, but Jamaica stands out along with Guyana because they still have Maroons today.
Okay.
All the descendants. And so Jamaica was ruled by Spain, and they brought African enslaved people with them. Some enslaved people managed to escape around that time, which led the Spanish to call them Maroons. Mm-hmm. And the word maroon comes from the Spanish word cimarron.
Okay.
I think that's how you say it. And that means wild or runaway. So the British, they come in, take over Jamaica, and then they fight off the Spaniards, and then it belongs to Britain. So during all that chaos, a lot of these enslaved people, they took that as an opportunity and, escaped to, build their own community.
Mm-hmm. So basically Spain is still just like ravishing the Caribbean, right? Like they're just trying to scoop up as many islands as possible. They've already gone to the Philippines,
right?
So they're just like gotta catch them all.
Yeah,
but I think it's so interesting that they're focusing so much on the islands. Is this all about the spices still? Or are we still in spice?
No,
world?
well, actually, plantations and stuff, sugar cane, coffee.
Gotcha.
Yep. So
okay.
Exactly. So that's just really good climate there to grow some good stuff. So it is kind of about the spices.
Okay.
It is. Yeah.
Interesting.
So Britain, they still, even though they took over the island and everything, of course they wanted to re-enslave the Maroons, but the Maroons fought back, and they didn't want the Maroons to exist because it encouraged other enslaved people to, try to escape. Mm-hmm. And the British struggled to take control of them. They even wrote letters to the crown, or I guess the king or queen of England, and were like, we don't have the resources or manpower to fight these guys off. We need help.
Oh, wow.
Please send troops. SOS. And sure, the crown helps financially, but there's another problem, which is nobody is even willing to fight these guys.
Oh, really?
They're like, we heard about them. Like, we know what's going to happen. Like, we're not going to, no, we don't want to. So it was clear that Africans outnumbered the British. And so there were about 80,000 of Africans in Jamaica alone.
Wow.
Plus 8,000 colonists. And among that 8,000, there were about 1,000 plantation owners.
Oh, wow.
And then most of the other 7,000, Europeans, they were indentured servants. And so that means they would be working under a contract or working to pay off the cost of the journey to the New World.
So basically there's only 1,000 people that are actually in power.
Yes.
And then you've got the rest of everybody else, the 80,000 Africans who are marooned on the islands. And then you have the 7,000 indentured, white servants.
Yep.
So
outnumbered.
Yeah. Yeah.
And these 1,000 plantation owners, they were the only ones really willing to go out and fight. But they either didn't have the rank or they wanted to stay home and make sure that, none of my enslaved people leave. They needed to babysit their plantation. So then England was able to send in soldiers, but they died almost instantly because of the diseases. Mm-hmm. They weren't immune to it. And so nothing for Britain was working, and there were just not enough men to fight and run these plantations at the same time. And eventually the British were like, forget it. And then they just got drunk off rum. And this is true. These are facts that literally came from a letter from a colonel to Britain. And one of the generals wrote, rum is the ruin of this island. It's easier to get rum here than beer in England. That's what he wrote. Whoa. And he was just like, forget it. So they were also drunk. They can't fight when they're drunk. So the British realized they're screwed and they give up. And so they ended up doing a peace treaty, which we've also talked about in past episodes, peace treaties. The British, they offered them peace, land, and freedom. But their condition was, but can you please help us, capture the new enslaved people? Which also, too, that, of course, did cause a rift between Maroons and then
I think you would probably.
Right.
Yeah.
So the British were also so I heard you guys were really good at growing crops. Could you give us some tips on how to grow these crops? They're like, the sugar and the plantains. I mean, you guys are just really good at that. So if you could give us some tips, and that's part of the peace treaty, then we're good.
That's so the audacity.
Seriously.
The audacity.
And these treaties were all around, like around the New World.
Can I play a clip that's perfect for this little moment? Because this is so interesting.
Do any of you know how to make a fire?
No!
To clean an octopus. Do you know how to do it?
One for me, one for you, one for me, one for you, one for me.
What's that?
That's mine.
All of this? Why?
I caught the fish.
Yes.
I made the fire.
And?
I cooked. I did all the work. And everybody got something. And maybe that's why you should not be so lazy and dependent on me.
I think you're forgetting that you and I are employees of a big shipping company. You are a toilet manager.
No. In the yacht, toilet manager here. Who am I?
You're the captain.
Yes. Who am I?
Captain.
Who am I?
Captain.
Who am I?
Captain.
In the yacht, cleaning lady here, captain. Okay?
Love that.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes. I thought you would be like, oh, hell yeah. And that's that's the vibe I'm getting right now with
exactly.
Right.
After all that was done, the Maroons, they ended up building themselves a pretty strong foundation in the wild.
Okay.
So remember, most of them are from Africa. And Africans, they came knowing these survival tips.
Yeah.
Like, they were like, we know how to do this. So they adapted fine.
Okay.
And it wasn't just them building a new community. Some of those Africans actually made it into existing tribes.
Okay, wow.
So they find these tribes, and they are the Taino.
Shut the front door. Whoa.
They mixed with the Taino, which, if you listen to our last episode, you'd know what I'm talking about.
Exactly. All right, cool.
Yup.
Cool.
So
Let's go.
they both mixed the culture and their survival skills. They're creating a new culture. So Maroons, they had help from nearby groups of other people. So my personal favorite, pirates.
Yar!
Oh yeah, we're gonna get into that too in our future episodes, but big pirate fan. And the pirates and the Maroons, they had some things in common. They both wanted freedom and to survive.
Of course.
That was it. And the only difference was that the Maroons were focused on land, while pirates were about raiding and the riches at sea, So they also still had that common enemy, the European colonists.
Yeah.
European colonists were after pirates too. So what pirates would do when they needed to restock on supplies, they would park their ship somewhere and then reach land and then meet up with some of the Maroon communities. And they're like, hey, you want to trade? We need food and fresh water, and then we'll give you some, they'll give them guns and or muskets and gunpowder, so they have some of those things. So they would trade and everything, and the Maroons, they knew the land and the terrain better than anyone, so they can offer information about the place and colonial patrols. But the Maroons were still kind of uneasy with helping the pirates because they still had that treaty with the British too. So like I said earlier, when there were that 7,000 Europeans, so a lot of them were Irishmen.
Oh, gosh. The Irish got around. I feel like the Irish just were hitching rides.
Yeah.
They're like, get us out of here. This sucks.
Yep.
So they're just hitching rides. Wherever you'll take us, we'll go. We'll figure it out.
And during this time, there was Cromwell's War going on in Ireland, which very briefly was a bloody war that was devastating to Ireland. Killed a bunch of people. The British wiped them out.
Okay.
So that's why a bunch of them were coming through as servants, because they were forced.
So truly, they were just trying to escape the conditions and, the fact that everything was so terrible under British rule. Yeah.
Right. And some turned to piracy, and then others, they actually became a Maroon. So the Maroons, how are they so much more successful than the colonists?
Exactly. Tell us.
Well, they're very good at farming.
Yeah, that's apparent. They wanted them to write a farmer's almanac.
And they were great at growing crops like plantains, corn, sugarcane, especially, which was in super high demand.
Yeah.
And they grew and used their own medicinal plants.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
And they also lived in the Blue Mountains, so the soil there was just perfect for growing crops. That moist, volcanic, mineral-rich soil was there for them. But the Maroons, they were strategic about where they placed their villages. They made sure to settle somewhere where, like, nobody could get to them. And you had to be on foot because of how difficult it was to get through, like, you know, the terrain and everything. So the English, a small victory was just getting to the village. and then getting through that terrain in deep jungle. Like, can you imagine what they're wearing? And they're going through that humidity.
Oh, my petticoat. It's soiled. Trying to climb this mountain.
And so I'm like, that just sounds miserable.
Yeah.
And so by the time they get to the village, it's like they're exhausted.
So are they trying to reach the village to then continue to have conflicts, or are they...
Yeah, they're coming to the village to go beat them up.
That is so embarrassing.
Yeah.
Like, you're gonna really walk up this hill, walk up this mountain, basically, and be exhausted. You're like, hold on, hands on their knees, sweating.
And I want to say this is before the treaty, but I mean, who knows? It might be after the treaty. And if one Maroon saw them, that's it.
Yeah.
Like, they're coming for them. But the biggest victory was actually capturing a Maroon village, which the British colonists would try to live in their village.
So embarrassing.
And then the Maroons, they would even leave, and they're like, we'll just start new.
Yeah.
Like, we know this terrain, we know this land. I know exactly where we can build a village. And then finally the European colonists are like, I can't live here. We don't know what we're doing. We don't know how to survive. So they would abandon the village, and then the Maroons would come back in, and they're like, got our home back.
Yeah.
So after that, the Europeans would burn down the village. Still, the Maroons were like, we could just build it right up.
Exactly.
Like, what? They were just incapable of, you know, destroying them. So when it came to fighting, which was my favorite part, guerrilla warfare.
Yeah.
So they attack quickly and then disappear into the forest. And when they attacked, they would blow horns and conch shells and make all this noise. So that would throw them off big time.
I will say the terrain is definitely different if you're fighting on European soil versus like these jungle environments and stuff. Like, it's going to be so different. Like, you know, I'm somebody that frequents the mountains, and just even hiking through that dense foliage, I mean, it's very disorienting. They say all the time that people get lost more in Appalachia than they do out in the Rocky area, because you can't tell where any sounds are coming from. Everything sounds like, you know, you hear it in your left, but then it's over on the right. It's like, you know, and the sound just like reverberates off of everything, and then just like kind of, it's very confusing.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I can imagine that these, you know, colonists are in there, and then they just hear caw, whatever.
What is happening?
Yeah. And they don't even know where they are. Everything is probably so dense and lush that they have no idea what's going on, where they are.
They're exhausted. It's just
hot, humid, mosquitoes.
And so they had ambush points. They made their own traps, carved out fake trails to confuse enemies.
Go ahead.
And they had their disguises with like face paint and everything. It's literally like from a movie. And another defense they would use is to secure huge stones with they tie it.
Yeah.
And then have them rolling down when they see colonists go up the hill, and they're just like, oh, boom. So it's like bowling.
We got some more
bowling for colonists. So they would use that, you know?
That's so funny.
And they also used swamps.
Wow, okay.
And all they needed to do was just lead them there. Because the mosquitoes, because they knew that they were susceptible to like malaria and yellow fever.
So they're just like luring them to the swamps because they're like, you're going to get bit. And
Yep.
really sick. Oh
Yep.
my gosh.
And then with the humidity, their gunpowder couldn't stay dry. It turned wet, and it's like, that takes care of the guns.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that.
So the animals also helped indirectly.
How?
So the Maroons knew where the dangerous animals congregated. So they would just lead them there. And they would be like, oh, this is where the venomous snakes hang out. And they would also mimic bird sounds to discreetly communicate. So they'll see, like, the enemies, you know, walking around, and they're like, and that's how they talk to each other, communicate without alerting the enemies.
Gotcha.
So the enemies are just like, oh, that's just a bird, you know?
Yeah.
And then that would be a way to, like, be like, okay, pounce, you know?
Okay.
So another technique they used were the sound of drums. And they'd use the drums to communicate with other villages. And it could be about incoming colonists, or like even like a celebratory greeting, like, oh, this princess got married, or something like that, you know. And there was a relay system, so one village would communicate, you know, play the drums, and then that village would play the drums to notify another village. So they would just bang these drums, you know. It only took under an hour to communicate, like, many miles.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'll play one for you here, but these are the drums that would play for the villages to communicate between each other. But the drums can be heard about 3 to 4 miles across the jungle, which is really far.
That is far.
And how that happens is that, so low frequencies like the drums and bass sounds don't absorb into the leaves or branches, so they just bounce off of them.
Okay, yeah.
So it's from jungle to tree to tree to tree.
Gotcha. That's kind of like what I was saying about the disorienting feeling of being in Appalachia.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep,
okay.
exactly. And the air is also more dense because of the humidity, and generally sound waves travel faster and further in the water because water is more dense than air. So that's why,
This makes so much sense. I didn't even think about that, but that makes so much sense.
So the whales, that's why whales can communicate from so far.
That's so true. Whale songs, they travel so... Oh, I'm so excited. Okay.
So
we're going to have to talk about that in an episode. I'm so ready.
So the Maroons, they utilized the humidity, you know, many ways, but that's one of them. And they'd use different rhythms, just like a secret code. Like the drums were like, it was another language. There might even been stories like that were,
So this kind of feeds into, like, again, the Puerto Rico episode where we talk about storytelling through music.
That's right.
La Bamba, La Plena, like all these different... you know, African-influenced music and stuff, salsa, all that stuff, so...
And I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Because these drums, they were inspired by West Africans. Like, it is pretty much suggested that the drums were introduced to the Taino. It's like, this is something that we introduced you.
I think they mentioned that in that clip in the Puerto Rican episode where they're like, the drums from West Africa.
Yep.
Yes. Oh, that's so exciting. Okay, but now I can't stop thinking about the Irish people who are just over there being like, you know?
Oh, so that there is actually a story about that too.
Okay.
Well, not so much a story, but there is one thing about that. Yeah, unfortunately, the Irish, they also couldn't last in these maroon tribes.
They couldn't handle it.
Yeah, but what they did do was disguise themselves as colonists. And like steal like guns, ammunition, and pretend that we're colonists too, we're soldiers, but they were actually helping out the Maroons, which is pretty badass.
Yeah, it is.
So going through all of that, the Maroons had the environment, they had biology, they had music, animals. All of them were on their side.
That's amazing.
And the English just could not get... And so today, they're still there today.
Yeah.
So
so some of those places that are still today that's regarded as like the marooned tribes and stuff like that, are we talking about Jamaica or are we talking about...
Yes, so Jamaica still has them in the Blue Mountains.
Okay.
And Guyana. Okay. They still have them. Those are the only two that still have maroons. At least that we know of. So, who knows? And so, it just works for them. They've adapted to the jungle, in the wilderness.
Yeah.
And they just do how they do.
That's amazing. So this kind of reminds me of, you talked about still living in the jungle, with the jungle, like using the resources from the jungle for medicinal uses and all this stuff. There's this guy named Paul Rosoli, and he lives in the Amazon. And so he's not quite like an island guy, but he is he's an Amazonian rainforest, conservationist and activist. Mm-hmm. There are so many medicinal plants in the jungle that only the natives know about, and so I'm just so fascinated with this way of just sort of being more integrated with understanding how nature works rather than just trying to cut everything down and then manufacture everything from scratch. And this seems to be a reoccurring battle in our episodes of being no, do it this way. No, we're going to do it this way. And just tear everything down. Let's build. And then you have a different culture battling that, being no, we like our simple life. And I think it's so interesting that there are so many stories that we've already told in this podcast, just being people are willing to fight for a simple life. Mm-hmm. And yet, even still today, I think we're still fighting to maintain some sort of simplicity as we introduce robots and AI and all this stuff. And, it's ironic because we're using said technology to even have this podcast and talk about all this. Right. But, but it goes to show that there is still something to fight for that has to do with nature and staying connected to the things that we were already given. This earth provides so much already. And I'm curious about what those medicinal plants are. What else is there? There's something better that could, Yeah, it's true. You guys should check him out. Paul Rosoli on Instagram. He's been on a bunch of podcasts. His last name is spelled Rosolie. And he actually is the first to he built the first sort of Airbnb treehouse, mega treehouse in the Amazon, and it's gorgeous. But all that money goes to Amazon protection and conservation and stuff. So that's just an example of how to work with the jungle to still basically be still participating in capitalism and growth and integration. So yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. And also, what we forgot to mention? What's that? Happy Wilderness Month. Oh, right? Is it? Go. You probably are right. Yeah. Wild About Wildlife Month. Yes. Yes. It's cancer season. And having all that in mind. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What zodiac sign do you think these Maroons are? That's a great question. Okay, as if you've never asked that before. No, I actually it didn't even occur to me. I'm gonna think about this for a second. Okay. So let's talk about what are some of these traits? They're relentless. They know how to cultivate the land. Yes. They're willing to just be F off. They work with the ecosystem. You know what? I'm gonna go Scorpio. Scorpio? I'm going to go Scorpio because something that I was just talking to my Scorpios in my life the other day, and I was thinking Scorpios really thrive when they're in control of the ecosystem. And I think that from what you're telling me about these folks, the fact that they're using animals to they're working alongside their animals, they're mimicking the birds. They're we're willing to go into the deep parts of this island to be safe, and we're not going to back down. Go ahead, try to burn down the structures. We're going to bring it back up. And I think that there's an element of just sort of relentlessness and luring them into traps that feels very Scorpio. Yes. Okay. They just seem very resourceful. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, don't forget to subscribe, share, follow us on Instagram at Chaos Theory Cosmic Cheesemay. You can email us if you have ideas of things you want us to talk about, or just introduce yourself as a listener. We'd love to hear from you. Mm-hmm. The email address is at chaostheorycosmicccheesemay@gmail.com. Yes. Okay. That's right. Awesome. Yep. Make sure that you rate, review, give us 5 stars. If you don't, that's okay, but just tell us why so we can improve and get better. Yeah. But we have so much fun doing this, and we're going to continue to pump out episodes every 2 weeks. We might even drop a bonus episode, but we are going to be posting on our Instagram and making sure that you all are in the loop about everything that we're doing, when episodes are dropping, so on and so forth. But to everybody that's been with us so far, thank you so much for your support. Thank you for listening. Share it with your friends.
And keep gossiping.